Welcome to another episode of Streamin with a Purpose. It's time to be inspired and motivated to live your best life on purpose. On Streamin with a Purpose, hear the stories of people who have, despite the odds, dealt with the challenges that life sometimes brings, but who still manage to overcome those odds. If you think life is tough and you have to settle for where you are, my guests and I are here to tell you you don't have to. I speak to people who were once where you are and are now living their purpose, and I want to encourage you to live your life to the fullest. I am your host, Sylvia Montgomery. Let's take a listen to our next guest. Hello and welcome to another episode of Streamin with a Purpose. I'm your host, Sylvia Montgomery, and I'm so excited that you are checking out today's show. Today's guest is best-selling author and businesswoman, Renee Ventrice. Renee, how are you today?
I'm so good, Sylvia. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast. I'm so happy to be here today.
I'm excited to have you and cannot wait to hear more of your story. So I'll share a little bio about Renee. Renee is the #1 Amazon best-selling author of Poor Relationship Choices, and that's POUR. She's a U.S. Navy veteran. She's holding up a book. She is a wine expert and co-founder of an award-winning winery and brewery tour company, which she sold for profit in December 2023. Renee is a successful community connection marketing strategist and the winner of multiple leadership and tourism awards, including Certified Tourism Ambassador of the Year, National Association of Women Business Owners, Rising Star Entrepreneur, and CEO of Excellence from CEO Review. Renee was awarded Meta's inaugural Digital Innovator Award in 2021, and her Facebook for Business Spotlight went viral in 2020 with over 18 million views. Wow, Renee, that is a lot. So, Renee, you started a business from nothing in 2016 with no experience, just passion, thoughts, and an idea. You've accomplished so much since starting your entrepreneurial journey, and I have certainly admired your journey. It was important for me to book this podcast with you because in just following your journey intermittently, I could see that you were full of expertise and vision. And if you could just start off by just sharing your journey from where you started and where you are today.
Ooh, thank you, Sylvia. First of all, you should be my hop woman and come with me everywhere. But second, yeah, how did I get there from here? I talked to somebody who knew me when I was just a young girl, 7, 8 years old. And I talked to her a few weeks ago, and she said, even back then, I always knew you were going to do something special. You would walk in the house after school and say, did Prince call for me yet today? Or was there anybody who called who wants to publish my poems? Or like I was always someone who was just expecting success, and I didn't really recognize that about myself until I spoke with her a few months ago. So I think what really unlocked it was finally allowing myself to be fully myself. And I know it sounds basic, but until you actually recognize how much of you that you kind of hide, how much of you that you haven't really explored, or how much of yourself that you marginalized. I found out that a lot of things that I've always done innately, I didn't really value because they came naturally. So I assumed everybody did them. I assumed there was nothing special about it if I could do it that easily. I didn't have to learn it, didn't have to go to school for it. Why would it be special? And when people started letting me know that who I was and what I brought to their lives was unique. And none of it came from being in the Navy, from going to school, from anything that I had learned in life. I started to truly value who I was from jump, just who I was innately. And when I started using those tools that were already a part of who I was toward my dreams in life, they started to come true. It it's so hard to explain because once you experience it, you recognize, dang, this was already in me. All I had to do was let her out, let him out. And now that I do that and I try to show other people how to do it, it's hard, right? I mean, it's kind of like, like when you're a caterpillar to become a butterfly. That caterpillar doesn't even realize how beautiful it is until it just breaks through, that whole, what's the C word for what the caterpillars are inside of? But when they break through that, it's not easy. You can't even see it. But then after you do it and you become that butterfly, you become unstoppable.
Yeah, I think maybe what you were thinking about it, is it a cocoon? You
Thank
said,
you, cocoon. Yeah.
yeah.
The
But
word
what I
cornucopia
heard
was
you
stuck in my head.
I heard you say two things, Renee. What I heard was mindset, first of all, because just from the jump, you just seem to have the mindset of someone who's going to be successful. And I do believe that it does take a certain mindset. We have to have that growth mindset in
Absolutely.
order for us to be able to achieve certain things. And then the other thing I heard was just being yourself, authenticity, how
Hmm.
important it is to really value and know who you are on the inside. And once you have those two things underway, a great growth mindset and knowing who you are, regardless of what other people might say you or who
Hmm.
they might say you are,
Hmm.
within yourself, then it is a perfect recipe for you to just move forward and do what it is you were meant to do. That's what I heard.
And that's what I said. I mean, it is really, it's so transformative. I was watching everything about authenticity about 6 months ago. I don't know if you follow my blog, but I get inspiration from my blog based on the posts that I make, like the comments I make in response to Facebook or LinkedIn, posts. And so I was writing a comment once, somebody was talking about authenticity, and I'm like, okay, if you have to try to be authentic, are you being authentic? So I started writing this blog post about it. And as I was writing it, it hit me. I was like, I understand now why authenticity is so hard for us because we have been taught not to be authentic.
Mhm.
Coming up, we were taught as young women, it's not polite to talk about yourself. Be seen and not heard. Don't brag about your achievements. You might make somebody else feel bad if they haven't done it. Put your light under a bushel. Even though in church they tell you to let it shine, back home it's like, stop talking about yourself. Stop being so arrogant, this and that. Only say these things in front of these people. So as I'm writing this blog, making fun of anyone who can't figure out authenticity, I realized we were told not to be authentic. No wonder this is a thing now that we're in our 50s. I mean, I don't know if you're in your 50s, I am, but we were told for so long that we shouldn't do these things. And so we grow up thinking that authenticity is being what other people want us to be. And that's something that I had to really sit in for a little while because I always thought that I was authentic. I was always, saying, I'm not being anybody but myself. I'm not bowing down to even the chief in the Navy or anybody who says I should do whatever. Of course, I followed orders, but on the inside, I thought that being me meant following those orders, right? So it was exactly that. I'd already had the good mindset going, but that authenticity post made me realize this is where the struggle actually began. And so I started really working through with my therapist, having these conversations about these parts of my life that maybe were what were holding me back. And so many more things clicked. So many more things made sense about why I was, where I was, who I was. And now I embrace every bit of that. I don't hide from the fact that I used to just want to please people. I don't hide from the fact that I used to be very, very shy about showing the things that I used to do that I didn't learn, but that were just a part of me naturally. I learned to use that humility, that grace that I had to give myself, and that expertise at being me to really move my life forward. I love it when somebody else actually has that same moment when my clients who I do, connection strategizing with, when they have that same moment and they unlock everything that they are instead of everything that they learned.
Mhm.
Man, it's just such a change. So I'm glad you said that about authenticity because that was a big moment. And that moment only happened about 3 or 4 months ago. Even though I've been living in this mindset for years, I got a clear understanding of who I was just 6 months ago. I continue to be a student of the world and always will be.
Yeah, I think it is a struggle for those of us who have not figured out who we are yet. And that's why I do this podcast, because I think that, once we can wrap our minds around who we are and who we were really meant to be, rather than being someone that sort of seems right,
Right?
it's a mask. And when we can take the mask off and be our true selves, I think that helps to lead us to what it is we were supposed to be doing. And when you talk about following your journey, or, how long I've been watching, yeah, I've been watching from the background, right? And we never know who's watching our journey, but I do remember when you and your husband were going through the process of selling your business. And, it was such an awesome thing for me to wrap my mind around, talk about mindsets. And I was like, wow, they're doing it, and I thought that was just so exciting. And then you recently wrote your book, but I just want to go back just a minute to 2016. What was it that just took you and your husband to that place to become business owners, and not just business owners, but again, going back to our authentic selves, because
Mhm.
I don't run into um, wine experts on a regular basis. So if you could just share a little bit, what took you all to that place?
I love this question because it was really so it all came together and fell apart almost at the exact same time. We dropped our son off at college in August of 2016. And 2 days later, well, so we dropped him off on a Saturday. We cried all day Sunday. And then on Monday, my husband got laid off from his job. And so, we were like, what? Now, it wasn't a job that he was crazy about anyway. So, he had severance, he did some honeydews, but by November, this new job wasn't coming up. And let me back up a little bit and tell you that my husband is also a Navy veteran, but he is far more military than I am. Like when I got out, I debriefed myself completely. I lost all sense of discipline. I just became the crazy Renee that I am. But he is a military guy, so he is risk adverse. He does the thing. His idea of a perfect life was work your 20 years, get the fancy pen, get your pension, and then sit on the couch and watch TV until it ends, right? So he was not a risk taker. Meanwhile, I was always ready to be an entrepreneur. I just never really had the vehicle. So November comes, we're taking this long ride, and we're like, severance is about to run out. We're not going to be able to pay this mortgage. And he says, I'm really tired of being one jerk's opinion away from not paying our bills. Maybe it's time for us to start our own business. To which I said, yep, let's go. So we opened a bottle of wine. By this time, we are enjoying wine. We drink wine. And, I've always been curious about education, but I never really went too far with it. So we open a bottle of wine and we decide we're going to contact on Monday this company that we've been doing wine tours with in California. And by Sunday night, we're talking about what we're going to say to them, and we're drinking another bottle of wine. And then he says, why do we need their name? Their name doesn't mean anything. What if we start our own thing? He's like, you're, in marketing, you know how to develop businesses. Why don't we just do it ourselves? Again, I'm like, yep. One thing we need to really concentrate on right here is how, as wives, we have to let our husbands have the big ideas. So even though I wanted to do exactly that all along, I had to have his buy-in and I had to have him be the one to say, this is the right move so that there was not any strife once we started. And it worked. So, yeah, so we came up with Cork and Keg Tours as the name. We did all the things, made a business plan. And it was magical. It worked. The biggest reason I think it worked well was because we were doing something we were passionate about. And we were leveraging all the things that I was good at being myself, good at doing organically, and that he was also good at doing organically. So we didn't get in each other's way. I have a yin yang tattoo on my ankle from the year we got married in 1994, and it's absolutely true. I hate math and numbers. He loves them. I hate being back of the house. He hates being being front of the house. So everything was like, we made a real partnership out of it. We made agreements on how we were going to settle any disputes. We really handled our business relationship as I call it bizlationships. That's one of my training programs, not as an extension of our marriage. So we really had to work through that. I've seen marriages break up when they try to work together, and ours actually made us stronger. So yeah, we really had we started out of necessity because he lost his job, but we grew out of really honing in on what we both do well and making it work for a business. And if it was something neither of us did well, we would outsource it. The growth happened very, very quickly. We started with just one vehicle, and that's what we ended with. Um, and we knew we were getting 300 requests a year to do tours, but we could only do about 100 a year after we actually finally hired people. So we knew we would either have to decide to go or grow. And when we looked at what our trajectory was for our lives, we ended up agreeing that it was better to sell the company to somebody who wanted to grow what we built. And we set ourselves a goal. We said, if we don't sell by December 31st of 2023, we're going to go ahead and invest in two more vehicles and build a bigger team and just continue with this business because it's a great business model. Turns out we sold it on December 28th to a really great family who are still, they're growing it. They've increased the fleet. They're doing a lot of great things. So we just listened to ourselves and we didn't listen to anybody who said we couldn't do it, who said there are already a bunch of limo companies. What makes you different and special? We did listen to the people who said, well, you guys are what make it different and special. And we were like, you're right. Let's go. So yeah, it was a real leap of faith for him. For me, it was just doing what I do. I don't mind failing. I became unafraid of failure about 2.5, 3 years ago. And I looked at failure. A mentor of mine told me to always fail up. When something doesn't go well, it gives you the opportunity to do it again and do it better than you might have done on the original. So congratulations on not getting it right. Now get back to work and do it righter. So that's the mindset that I've taken into all of this. And the book and becoming a marketing coach and becoming a sommelier and extending my wine education to now being part of a national team of sommeliers that do international wine experiences, both virtually and in person. All of that is because I'm not afraid to fail.
I heard so many things as you were talking. I just hope I can remember it all. First of all, I want to say kudos to your husband. Wow, talk about a mindset change. How many of us live our whole lives thinking, as he also thought,
Mhm.
that what life meant, right? We go
Yeah,
to work, we do our 20, 30, 40 years or however we retire and we live whatever life we end up living in retirement. But
right.
he did a complete mind shift. And wow, and I feel like if more of us could do that, we would just be so much happier at the end of the day. But then the
Hmm.
other thing I heard too is once you guys did decide that you were going to do this thing, right from the jump, you took on the business mindset. You got the operating agreement in place. You did what you needed to do to think like a business. And so often, we get into business and we're not thinking like a business because we're just getting into it and we're just sort of dragging our feet. I'm speaking from experience, by the way. And so
Been there too.
it takes a minute for us to realize that, oh my gosh, this is a business and I need to act like it and I need to treat it as such. But you two just went full speed on right into it, understanding that you had to have some agreements in place. You had to, I mean, and just again, the positive mindset, which sort of framed it all, and having a marketing experience, that marketing experience prior to even starting the business with your husband, you have found a way, even after selling such a successful business, to bring all of that back into play now and doing what you're doing now. And you're still incorporating a wine mindset because even when we look at your book, the whole concept is around sipping on wine as you explore relationships in your life. So let's talk about your book for a minute.
Let's talk about it.
Explain that
Yeah.
concept and what got you to that place.
Yeah. So before I say that, I want to say that I appreciate your intuition on exactly what it is. And I'm glad that you're understanding the importance of what we did behind the scenes to show what it was out in front. It wasn't sunshine and rainbows every day. I mean, we had a couple of knockdown dragouts where we had to take some deep breaths, recognize where we were, and do some resetting. So it wasn't like it was easy all the time, but it was worth it all the time. So I want people to understand that you are going to struggle. So your struggle has to be worth it. And if you struggle with the right things and work through it, and if you work hard at the right things, good things happen. Somebody said to me just yesterday, you worked really hard, Renee. There was no doubt you were going to be successful. And I said, well, I know a lot of people who work hard who aren't successful. It's not because they're not hard workers. It's because they're working hard at the wrong things. So, but I thanked her, for her insight, but that was it. So the book, this is really, really fun for me because I've always seen wine as more than a beverage. Orange juice is a beverage. All right. Coca-Cola is a beverage, but nobody sees a bottle and says, oh, remember that time we drank that orange juice on the beach and the sun was going down and it was so beautiful. Let's go and get that Dole juice again. Right. It's not the way other beverages work, but wine, you walk through a store and Sylvia, are you a wine drinker?
On occasion, I do socially. Yeah.
Okay. So have you ever walked into whether it's an event or walking through the store and you see a wine label and you think, oh, I had that wine. That was that so-and-so's, 40th birthday party. Man, we tore it up that night. I don't know how we didn't end up in jail, right? You end up with these types of things, just seeing a label or somebody says Merlot and you're like, oh, I got so sick on Merlot once. I can't even look at a bottle, right? It doesn't matter. It brings in a memory, and memories are from a relationship. And so when I do my wine events, I now have a company called Wine O'Clock Culinary Experiences. And yes, Wine O'Clock is trademarked. And yeah, every time somebody says it, I plan on getting paid. But anyway, Wine O'Clock Culinary Experiences, I would talk about the wine to my dinner guests. And I would tell them, like, this wine is, it's nice and bright, but it also has a deeper side. So while it looks like a really pretty, prom queen, it's probably done time in juvie. So you might want to make sure when you're drinking this wine, understand that it could have done some prison time. And they're like, what do you mean? And I say, well, take another sip and recognize, like, on the back end of this wine, there's a bit of a salty characteristic, or you get a little bit of taste of earth or something. That depth means that this is more than what you're tasting on the surface, just like people. So at the end of, my wine dinners, my wine experiences, people would come up to me and say, when are you going to write a book about this? What kind of wine am I? What's my personality? I've never heard anybody talk about wine in this way. I can't wait. I'm going to book an event with you and I want you to, like, read me and all of my friends, right? So it just kept happening. And this had been happening for like 2 years. And I was like, yeah, one day I'll write a book. One day I'll write a book. So, and this is something I haven't told anybody. So you're getting this first. And I hope I make it through without getting too emotional. I am team crybaby. But I was having a moment in early March where I was really concerned about my son's happiness, right? He lives in Tennessee. He's 26. And every now and then I just wake up, as moms were like, sometimes we wake up with these feelings. So I woke up and I was so concerned about him. I was starting to get upset about it. And I had no reason to be, by the way. I talked to him all the time. He was fine. I couldn't shake it. Called my therapist. And I go to Craig. I'm like, Craig, I'm worried about Gino, blah, blah, blah. And he just looks at me, he goes, you're worried about a child, but it's not Gino. And I'm like, what? And he said, yeah, what's really going on? And I said, can't we just talk about the boy? This is not about me. He's like, it is about you, Renee. What's going on? Well, fast forward to the end of the conversation. We talked about how when I was 7 years old, I had won a creative writing contest, big contest in Nebraska where I grew up. I was 7 and I beat sixth graders and I beat hundreds of people in my town and thousands of other people in Nebraska. And it was 1977. And I came home and told my parents I won. And they said, oh, baby, that's so great. We're so proud of you. But we can't afford to drive 200 miles, to go to this, award ceremony and get a hotel, taking food out of your other 5 siblings' mouths. So, but good job, right? Pat on the shoulder. And that was it. So the day of months later, the day of the ceremony comes. I'm not there. And we're not talking about it in my house. I mean, we never discussed it again after they said we're not going. So I remember I put this little album on, a little 45. It was called Ever Loving Sam by Odyssey. It was my favorite song as a kid. Don't ask me why, it just was. I put it on and I sat in the corner and I had my face toward the corner. And I remember crying really quietly because I didn't want anyone to hear me crying. I didn't want anyone to know. But I was just really sad that we didn't celebrate, going there. And then nobody even cared that that was the day. So my therapist says, Renee, I want you to go home and I want you. He said, what did little Renee need to hear in that moment? And I said, I just wish they had baked me a cake and said, we couldn't go to your ceremony, but we're proud of you. Let's celebrate. And we want you to read your poem, your short story to everybody. That would have made 7-year-old Renee really, really happy. So Craig says, go home, bake yourself that cake, and write on that cake, I'm proud of you, Renee, Ward, 1997, 1977. So I told my husband this. We didn't have stuff to make a cake. We actually made tapioca pudding, which is my other favorite. And we wrote on it online. We took a picture of it and then we did a little write online that says, congratulations, Renee, 1977 author. I kid you not even a week later, I'm having an unrelated conversation with a guy who I know in marketing that we're considering doing a speaking engagement together. And I said, well, I loved your book, Jake. Who is your publisher? I'd like to work with them. And he said, fun fact, I loved working with my publisher so much. Now they work for me and I opened a publishing company. You should be my first book. I said yes in less than 48 hours, and the book was done in 72 days. So it was really, I mean, and that's going to be a chapter in the book, in the next edition of it. I couldn't get through it this time around. I would write and I would just get stuck. And when I get stuck, I just stop. I don't try to force it. I don't try to make it something that it's not. I say, if it fits, it fits. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That chapter of my relationship with myself is not in this book, even though it was the most important one to me. And it's because maybe my journey isn't quite finished. Maybe I still have things to learn about myself that the reader will need to know when I discover them. But I just went forward and I did it scared, but I did it without fear. I did it fast, but I did it in a calculated way. And I did it from a place of strength and belief in myself that I don't think I had in writing a book 90 days ago.
Wow. Such an awesome story, Renee. And again, I just continue to admire your journey because you are a testament to anyone who just feels like they have to just stay stuck in one place or in one area because you've taken you, and I did hear you when you started off, when we started the conversation, you used to write poems when you were young. So you took your writing abilities. You are a wine expert. You're a wine educator. And you are a marketing specialist. You took all of those things. You have found a way to build on those extraordinary gifts and talents to make them into multiple businesses. You've shifted when you needed to. You sold off one, but that didn't stop your journey. You continued your journey. You just shifted a little bit, but you're still doing things that you love. You're doing things that you're passionate about. And I love that because, we will hear people tell us, stay with one thing, just stick with the one thing
Mhm.
and do that one thing. Do that one thing well. And then we'll help you, well, do the one thing well. And then once you do that well, then you can shift to something else. But you have found a way to just pull them all together and you do them all well. So you are a testament that it works.
Thank you.
And
It
that
really
when
does.
you
It does
fully
work when you know who you are and you don't run from it and you don't try to do things that other people tell you you should be doing. Oh, you're so good at XYZ, you should do that. Oh, I guess I
right,
should because they believe in me. Well, what do you believe about yourself, right? So,
And that's exactly what I was about to say, sort of. You said it better, but I was going to say when you know who you are, when you know your authentic self,
Yeah.
then it just leads you to a place where you can do what it is you were meant to be doing and do it productively. So, wow, such an awesome story. I'm so glad that you had the opportunity to come back and write and get your accolades. And you're now number one on Amazon.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was crazy. So I think there are two things. First, the publishing company, I was their first book. I was their first author. I am their first bestseller. So, we learned together. So I didn't take it lightly that they believed in me enough to really champion me in this way.
Mhm,
Um, And, so working with them was really good. We were very, very, calculated in how we were going to go about making this into a bestseller. So their work was definitely a big part of it. But I think the other part is that wine is really a misunderstood industry. People think that a lot of people still think that it's an old, white, rich, male-dominated, industry. And while it is on the surface, it looks like some of those things, depending on where you're drinking, how you're getting your wine. The truth is, wine belongs to all of us. And as I was writing the book, I thought it was just going to be a fun little memoir where I talk about my toxic ex wine, my booty call wine, my ride or die wine, things like that. I was just having fun with it, like coming up with stories from my life and then giving them a wine, association for the relationship. But at some point, I was writing it and I realized I am going to make this book something where people who only drink box wine on Saturday night love it just as much as a wine collector who buys $2,000 bottles when they fly in their private jet to Loire, France, right? And so I started exposing things about wine, the way it made me feel and made me think that had nothing to do with the wine education that I got. Again, I dipped into me and made it into a book that other people could relate to. I had one of the best moments. Somebody who got one of my advanced copies from an event, a good friend, she sent me a picture of a page of the book while she was on vacation. And she said, OMG, Renee, you just inspired me to go home and open this bottle that I've been saving forever. When I get home, I'm going to open it just because I had a great vacation and that day is special. And I never thought about every day being special. So thank you. And I said, thank you so much for saying that. Here's my Google review link. If you could just kind of share that on Google and Amazon, that'd be great. So it's working. And I think people were really craving something a little different, something that brought something that they love to do into something about themselves that they appreciate.
mhm,
Good, bad, and beautiful. I changed it from good, bad, and ugly because there's nothing ugly about it. So the good, bad, and beautiful is that you've got relationships that even if they're temporary, they were good. If they were bad, you got rid of them. And if they're beautiful, you keep them forever. And we do the same exact thing with wine. So I'm I love the response that I'm getting for it. Now that I hear the way people are responding, I'm not surprised it's a bestseller. I'm just surprised I haven't been charging people to come and do readings yet. That's coming.
mhm. Awesome, awesome. Now, I know you talked a little bit about challenges. We didn't really get into those challenges, but I do want to ask you if you could do some things different in your journey, what would they be or it be?
If I could do anything different from the time that I started this entrepreneurial journey till now, I mean, gosh, I think I would probably take no, I wouldn't do that. I'm lying if I say that. I was about to say I would take some accounting classes so I could be better at my own numbers, but that's a lie. I would just make more money so I could hire somebody else to do it. But what would I do differently? You know what? I think I would be more out there. I think I would have not waited until I felt that I had the receipts to really put myself out there in front of an audience that I wasn't as familiar with. I wouldn't have played it as safe. If I could go back in time, I would have probably gotten a loan for like $10,000 more, and I would have spent that money on myself, not at the spa. necessarily, but I would have spent it on really promoting what it was that I had. I would have spent it going into these rooms, just busting through the door and saying, "Hey, tourism, community. Hey, wine community. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And you should be listening to me. You should be watching this journey happen." I would have done more before I had the success, instead of waiting until after and saying, "Hey, look what I did." I would have definitely bet on myself more and said, "This is what I'm going to do. You want to be a part of this? Here's how." That's what I would have done differently.
Starting a business is about taking risks.
Hmm.
Right. And we got to take the risk and we got to be, you even said it earlier, we have to even be willing to fail throughout. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
I've always been willing to fail. So I kind of always, I mean, like I remember when I was young, I got into this little dance competition at the mall. I grew up in Bellevue, Nebraska, and there was a dance competition. It was during the Rhythm Nation time of my life, with Janet Jackson. And so I only found out about it 3 days before the contest was happening. And I was like, I don't need that much time. I'm a cheerleader. I'm a cheerleader. I can choreograph a routine. And I show up at the mall in my janky little outfit, and there are dance teams and like professional dancers and dance schools and girls with all these coaches. And I literally show up in my thrift shop outfit with my cassette that I made, with a little Janet Jackson mix. I mixed two of her songs. And I get up there and I do my corny little routine. And I took second place, right? And it was like, okay. I mean, I didn't get intimidated when I saw that I was going up against dance schools and like girls who had been dancing in, point shoes since they were babies. I'm just this chick who liked to dance in front of the mirror and was a cheerleader in high school and thought, ooh, I could use 50 bucks. Let's see if I can win. So I've never really been that afraid of failure, but I have been very afraid of rejection. It's not the same thing at all. And my fear of rejection kept me back for a long time. And I had a mindset coach. His name was Doug Stampley. He's who I met 2.5, almost 3 years ago. And he got to the bottom of why I was so afraid of being rejected. He's like, I don't get it. He's like, there are so many things about you that are so special. And everything he mentioned, I rolled my eyes at. I'm like, oh, that's just how I am. Ah, that's just what I do. Well, that's nothing special. But when we got to the heart of why I was so afraid of being rejected, and how to work through those feelings, now, if you reject me, you don't deserve me. Plain and simple. Or you're just not the right person. You rejected me so that I could make room for that person who accepts me. So thank you for not getting in the way of my success. And that mindset has just made it so I go to sleep. I go to sleep every night unconcerned, unbothered. Another beautiful, impactful person in my life that you should talk to is Dr. Rhonda Alexander. She has a podcast called Unperturbed, and her book is just really leans into who you are. And you can hear it a bunch of different ways, and sometimes it resonates. But what Rhonda and what Doug told me about myself and how I affected two people who I respected so much, I was like, well, first of all, I should be listening to them. But second of all, you've always been that person. You've always known that about yourself. It's time you start believing yourself. So it's really, really fascinating looking back at rejection and failure being the big things that, failure wasn't a problem, rejection was. So I wouldn't give my big ideas to anybody who could actually have an impact. I would share them with people who would cheer for me, yay. And then I think, oh, you're just saying that because you love me, right? But when I started sharing these ideas with people who were total strangers, who, could possibly end up investing six figures in me, when I started saying these types of things and they were resonating, I was like, dang, I've missed out on so much. I'm never going to hide my light again. So and I know that some people think, oh, she's kind of full of herself. I am full of myself. I am full of joy with myself. I am humbly appreciative of myself. It's not the same as being arrogant. And I challenge everybody to brag about themselves in a way that is really true to who they are, and see if you don't really feel good about it. See if you regret telling people about something amazing that you are or have achieved. I guarantee you don't.
It's that what you have said is just so important because the struggles in life are real, and a lot of what we struggle through just starts right here.
Hmm.
And again, I'll go back to what you said earlier that I actually meant to make a statement on when you talked about how we're not supposed to talk too much about ourselves. At least that's how a lot of us were brought up. Don't think so much of yourself that it's all about you or whatever. And that's a true thing. But when we're young and we're just starting out in life, sometimes we're asked to just downplay ourselves a little bit. It's hard enough. Having that positive outlook, that positive mindset. And when you are, as I am, an introvert, it's even harder
Hmm.
because you just sort of take that to heart and then you continue to hold on to that. So now when you're trying to talk about yourself and you get the rejection and you get the no's, as you get older, it sort of takes you back to that place and to that limited mindset where
That
you're
part.
remembering that, oh yeah, I shouldn't have even done that. Why did I do that? Shouldn't have brought that up. I'm not even going to talk about that again. So hearing this from this, because the growth mindset is important. It's very real. And people might think we're being arrogant, but it's really important to be able to progress and move forward. We got to get by the rejection. We got to get past the no's. And we have to understand that even though we get those, that just keep moving. I mean,
Just keep
the
moving.
message at the end of the day, just keep going. If you know you were meant to be doing something, you got
Mhm.
to keep going. And it's actually taken me decades to come to that realization. So
Same.
it's very important. So important, Renee.
I got to tell you this. I came up with this, and I don't remember if I wrote it or if I saw it and remembered it. But I said years ago, I said, arrogance is saying I'm better than you. Confidence is saying I'm the best I can be. And so whenever I'm writing, whenever I'm, doing things with my clients, whenever I'm coaching them on, their content and how to talk about themselves, that is a common theme that I want them to understand so that they don't feel bad about talking about who they are, that they can break that cycle of saying, don't brag, don't talk about it, let other people shout you out, give yourself flowers. But arrogance is saying that I am better than somebody else. Confidence is saying that I am the best I can be. Right. And it really does make a difference. And when you say that, when you're now starting to write about it, when you're starting to talk about it, and when you're starting to be, in on stages, in these rooms, doing workshops, whatever it is, you come across in this way that people get. I know it works because I did a presentation and someone came up to me and they're like, you are so down to earth, you're so real, you've accomplished so many things, and yet I feel like I could sit down and like, just have coffee with you anytime and you would lean into me. And I appreciated that. And I love that they said that and felt that because it's because I came from a place of being on that stage and not thinking I'm better than you because I'm on this stage. I'm the best I can be, and that's why I'm here. And people feel it. That exchange of energy is a real thing, and people really do understand that I'm not up here teaching you something because I'm better than you. I'm up here teaching you something because I learned it for myself, and it made me a better person. And if it can work for you, I want to share. And it's very important to me to always put that out because it's funny. The more I achieve, the less impressed I am with myself. And I know that sounds strange to say, but I'm actually not impressed with myself. I've never been. I'm proud of myself. I'm humbled by the support, and I'm confident that anytime I go into a room, anything that I'm being asked to speak about, nobody in that room knows it better than me because it's mine, right? But that's not the same as being impressed by yourself. I don't find myself to be impressive. I find myself to, the most impressive thing I think about me is that I'm not afraid to go for it. What I did wasn't impressive. My attitude to do it was. Ooh, I got to write that down. That was good. But
Wow.
I think that's one of the reasons why people are drawn to things that I'm doing and drawn to asking me to be a part of, whether it's being the sommelier at a wine event or coming and doing a workshop or a talk on entrepreneurship, mentoring in the youth entrepreneur academy that we have here in Virginia. I think it's because they know that I'm not there for me. I'm there for, I'm there for them. And I know how to bring that type of personality, not personality, bring that type of appreciation, self-appreciation out in others. So
Mhm.
I'm just doing what I do.
Let's talk a little bit about who you're there for. So what does your typical client look like?
Mm. So my typical client for my wine events or the person who buys my book is somebody who really does enjoy wine, whether it's just on Saturday nights or they're in the wine industry. So they enjoy it and they understand the concept of wine being part of an experience. So those are the people who like to come to my events or will love this book because it's not your mom's, wine tasting. It's not just a this wine is from France and the terroir is slate and volcanic ash. It's not that. It really is just a fun sip through life. So those are my target clients there. It doesn't really matter their age. I've got people who are 25, who are influencers online, who want to learn about wine, who come to the events and bought the book. And I have people who are in their 70s, who are winemakers, winery owners, sommeliers with decades more experience than me, who still get a great laugh and learn from what I say about wine and ask me if they can use my descriptions in their next presentation. I'm like, I'd be sad if you didn't. So that's my wine audience. Anyone who really gets that wine is an experience, come join me. And if you don't understand why people think that wine is an experience, come join me. So that's who that is. My communication, my community, I can't even think of my title right now. My community connection
Mhm.
marketing clients are people who want to build a brand around a community around their brand that generates revenue, not just customer by customer, but also business to business. And this person also gets the value of working with other businesses so that a high tide raises both ships, but they don't quite understand or know what steps to take to make those great collaborations happen. So that's who that client is. A lot of people, I got to say, I think everybody really does need community around their brands, but it's different type. What you need when you make candles is different than what you need when you power wash homes. But at the end of the day, you still want people to see you as somebody in the community worth trusting and supporting and referring. And so, as I work with different clients, if they don't already understand that mindset, it's too early for them to even work with me. My ideals will sound way too off the wall. They're going to be like, can't we just run Google ads and Facebook ads and put an ad in a newspaper? I'm like, you can do all that without me, but none of it's going to do for you what I bring to the table. So the people who work with me and succeed with me are those who know that the status quo is not going to get them where they want to be. And they're ready to try new and innovative ideas and let other people become their marketing minions. So that's what I do. It's why my marketing was so inexpensive when we built our tour company. It's because I didn't pay for ads. I made other people so happy to talk about my business and incentivize them to do it that I had 1,000 people on a marketing team who simply, you got to talk to Renee. You got to use her tour company. I became the first person they thought of when the word wine came out of their mouths. We were in Turks and Caicos a few months ago, and we're just walking down the street randomly. And suddenly this woman yells, "Excuse me, are you Renee Ventrice?" My husband just shook his head. He's like, here we go again. And I was like, I don't know. Does Renee Ventrice owe you money? And so she's like, no, but I've been seeing you, online. I followed you when you owned your wine company. Congratulations on selling that. I'm in your pre-launch book club, but it's just so neat to see you in person. I've never met you, but I love what you're up to. Do you know that that woman has invited over 20 people now into my private, wine club group? She bought the book. She tells everybody about it. She tags me and everything. She asked me for wine advice for a big wine event that she was going to, and she wanted to bring a winning bottle. And I said, well, if your bottle wins, make sure you tell them that you made a poor relationship choice to be a part of my club and sell my book. Ha ha ha. Well, she did, right? And this is just a random stranger who I've only seen one time on the streets of Turks and Caicos. You make yourself part of a community. I didn't try to sell her anything. I wasn't selling anything when she decided to follow me. You weren't buying anything from me when you saw me either, right? You're just like, I got to know more about her. And that's what I teach clients how to do. So if you want that, you got to contact me. That's what I do.
You never know who's watching, right? And
Never know.
so, wow. So, if you're looking to take your business, if you're serious, let me say that about really taking your business to the next level, here's an expert right here in Renee because she's already done it and she's done it multiple times. And, or if you're a wine owner or a wine lover, should I say, who really love
Mhm.
wine, or just love a good read. And I can't wait. I did purchase your book, so I'm excited and can't wait to read it. I'm looking forward to the stories and just sort of getting a glimpse of some of my relationships and doing that comparison as well. So that should be very
Thank you.
interesting. Looking forward to it. I have one more question about purpose. Do you
Okay.
think, because you seem to be really, you're passionate about what you do and you seem so happy at it, do you think that people can be truly, truly happy in life if they are not living their purpose?
You know what? They can fool themselves into thinking they are. But there is a moment, you call it what you want. Chicken's coming home to roost, come to Jesus moment, aha moment, whatever you call that moment. As we get older and as we start to evolve and the situations around our lives start to change, none of us can avoid that moment where we're looking in the mirror or looking out at the sunset or sunrise and we go, is this it?
Mm.
Is this all I'm living for? Is this it? And when you have that thought, that is a thought that has to propel you into taking some sort of action. If you never have that thought, well, then you're fine. Yeah, you can live and die without ever, achieving whatever it is you really were meant to do, without ever acknowledging that niggling little part behind at the back of your head that's like, is that all I am? Is that all I can do? You can ignore it and you can live a happy life. Is it the happiest life that you could have lived? And is it the fullest life that you could have had? No. And are you robbing other people of what it is that you could have brought to the table for them by not exploring that? You absolutely are. Another one of my coaches, Donna St. Louis, she was the one who was like, shame on you, Renee, for robbing people of having the same type of experience with themselves that you've had. Your gift can make somebody else's day better, and you're afraid to let that show. You're going to sit back here and be like, no, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to go do this little thing. She's like, if you really cared about people, you wouldn't do that, and you care about people, so knock it off. She really came at me.
Oh my
She
gosh,
was
I
right.
love that. I
But
might
she's like,
need to use that. I
listen,
might
I'm
need
telling you, you can have a conversation. I would love to introduce you to her. She's like, "What's wrong with you? Shame on you for hiding yourself." And you know what? She was right. And so every time I'm about to have a conversation, now listen, I'm a recovering. I call myself a recovering. I have GWA syndrome, which is giving unsolicited advice syndrome. I just made that up this morning. So I take it very seriously that if I know I have something to share with someone, I get their permission to share. I make sure that they understand what I think that they, what our conversation told me. Just like you said, I heard you say XYZ. If you just want me to listen, I'm here. Let's raise a glass and listen. But if you want to know my experience with it, let me know, and I would love to share. Sometimes I get told, yes, I want to know. Sometimes I get told, you know what? Everybody and their grandmama has given me their advice. I'm not in a place to need advice right now. Thank you for asking. I will come to you when I'm ready. And I was so relieved when I got that no, because that meant that asking was the right thing to do. So, can you live a happy life without knowing your purpose? Sure. Can you live a full life that brings you joy? Because happiness and joy are two different things. Happiness is temporary, joy is inside, right? Happiness happens, joy is. I got to come up with a better way to say that, but so you will never have that true peace and joy unless you have discovered what your true purpose is and you fearlessly go after it and explore it. And gosh, things just open up. I get joy out of little things now that I didn't. I'm not frustrated by things when things go wrong. I actually, I don't want to say I look forward to it. Before I used to dread it. I would always wait for that other shoe to drop. So I would dread something going wrong. Now, when something goes wrong, I rub my hands together. I'm like, okay, this is where I get to shine. This is where I get to make this bad situation good or this good situation great. And people are just like, how can you be so Renee? And I'm like, because I am all Renee. And it's fun. So yeah, you're not fooling yourself at saying that you're happy, but you are fooling yourself if you think that if you're joyful, and that you don't have a purpose or that you're in your purpose if you haven't honestly gone after it.
I love it. I love it all, Renee. Being so Renee is awesome. So, do you have any tidbits about purpose that you'd like to share before we end the show?
Well, you really uncovered a lot of it, Sylvia. So thank you so much. I would love to sit down with you and find out more about what makes you such an insightful interviewer. Everybody doesn't pull these types of things out of folks. I would just say not to not to ever look back and feel bad that it took you that long to ba ba ba. Right? I'm almost 55 and I've been living a life that was full and that was happy and was fine, but I really was going through that at the end of the day. What am I doing here? Never look back and say, I could have, if I had only. That's just as bad as when you buy a stock on the stock market and you buy it for $10 and it doubles. So you sell it at $20, but then it goes to $100. Look, you can't look back with regret. You have to look forward and say, well, if it drops to 80, I'm buying it just in case it goes to 150, right? So I would say to anybody who is listening to this, doesn't matter how old you are, how many things you've done that you either regret, or how many shots you didn't take that you wish you had. It's not too late to take new shots. And there may have been a reason that you didn't take that shot, because if you had, you wouldn't be where you are right now to find the shot you really are set up to take, to find the person you really are set up to be. So don't regret, don't revert, just re-energize and just rename. Just go. Just try it. I've got one more thing about purpose that helped me. Ooh, I'm not gonna get emotional. I'm gonna get through this. This thought gets me through my day all the time. And it goes back to 2015, actually. My son was a really good baseball player. And he had a coach that really did a number on his confidence when he was a junior in high school and just tore his love for baseball away from him. And we tried everything we could as parents to try to get him to rekindle that, maybe playing in college, because he had schools interested. He was very good, but he was just done, right? It was really hard on both of us because we knew how good he was and we were so frustrated that he didn't embrace that.
Mhm.
Fast forward now, 9 years later, he'll be 10 years out of high school next year, and he is doing really, really well, right? He's been through some really hard times. He's had some really hard lessons. He has had to grow. He has had to have pain. It hasn't been an easy time for him. But I look back at that and I say to myself, if he had played baseball, he might not be the grounded, incredible human being that he is right now. If he hadn't abandoned baseball and taken a path that wasn't his path, it was my path. I wanted him to be a New York Yankee, right? He no longer wanted to be one and he had done what I wanted, he might be a Yankee, but he'd be an unhappy, unfulfilled one. But because he chose his own path, even though it was more difficult, even though that path was fraught with frustration and challenges, where he is today is such an amazing, and he's not done. He's only 26, but the growth that he has had and the kind of person that he has become is so incredible and something that we're so proud of. He's so proud of. He wouldn't have been that person if he had taken my path, which I thought was his. So I say that to say, don't let other people decide what your path is supposed to be, because even if you do it and you're great at it, it's not you.
Mhm. Awesome stories. Thank you so much, Renee. I have really
Yeah.
enjoyed this. Love learning so much from you. Now, how can people who want to connect with you connect with you?
Oh, that's easy. My website is reneeventrice.com. And under there, you will find the Bizlationships coaching. You will find Wine O'Clock culinary events. You'll find Poor Relationship Choices books. So you can choose your adventure with me just by going to reneeventrice.com. I'm the same exact name on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I'd love to collect with anyone, and I'd love to hear your feedback on anything that our conversation brought to you. Because that's what really matters. And that's the best way. If you decide you'd like to try to get the book, I would love to see you read the book. And I have a private society. It's called the Poor Choices Crew Club, where we actually have hidden chapters. We talk more about wine, relationships, and business, whatever it is you want to talk about. We just kind of come together on living our fullest and most joyful lives. So, yeah, reneeventrice.com. Go there, get what you want out of it, and reach out to me.
Awesome, Renee. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been awesome. And I know that whoever hears this, it's just going to be such a mind-blowing thing for them because so much came out of this today. We've talked about so much, and it all stemmed around purpose. So if you're out there struggling with your purpose, just again, going back to what Renee just said, please connect. And we wish you all the best in your purpose journey. Renee, I wish you all the best as you continue your entrepreneur journey.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. And I'm excited as well. And it's kind of funny. I didn't even realize that the name of the podcast was about purpose. And
Mhm.
literally just bought the domain for one of the new books in my series called Purposeful Living, Pour. And the parallels between your life journey and wine. Well, it wrote itself. So clearly we were supposed to talk today. So
Okay.
thank you. And I can't wait to listen to more of your episodes. You are a masterful interviewer, and I've had a great time today. So thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
You have just listened to Streaming with a Purpose with your host, Sylvia Montgomery. Thank you so much for listening and continue to stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, bye bye.